The last big patch of the War Within is out, and there is stuff to do. From the legendary cloak, to new open world systems, and all the expected dungeons and raid additions, 11.2 is addressing a lot of concerns players have been having. How's it going? Welcome back to Marcelian Online. Today I will give you all of the juicy details for the 11.2 content that you will want and what to expect from Season 3 in case you were wondering if you should come back and play the dopest zone, story, and raid we're getting, something that WoW hasn't had since Legion. First off, the new zone, Karesh. This is one of their best zones ever made from so many points of view. First of all, if you are a fan of the Ethereal lore, being here will give you giga geeky juices. Karesh was basically the world soul the Ethereals were on, and yes, it was, because obviously Dimensius already ate it. And you can see the oh my god damn shit, what is that, holy moly, wow. But I will let you discover the story on your own. The campaign will start with the first 3 story chapters being available week 1 and the last 2 following in the second one. You will go back to Tazavesh, but this time it will be our new player hub for those still reminiscing since Shadowlands, one of the few things good with Shadowlands during that time. The other being Venari as one of our campaign guides, particularly handling a part of the story campaign focusing on a totally new way to engage with the zone called Ecological Succession. This is basically the Ethereals trying to terraform, kinda, the planet by infusing it with plants and wildlife. Part of this quest will have you travel to all zones to pick up all sorts of fauna and acclimate it to the Echo Domes present throughout Karesh, after which these will turn into weekly quests with fat epic chest rewards. Of course, all of this comes with a new renowned track and faction called Karesh Trust. It has 20 levels and the rewards are what you may guess with a few new additions, nothing out of the ordinary here, with one big exception. And before I tell you what's up, I will say that this video, as well as a lot of upcoming content like the Marcelian Online Plater and Class Weekaras, are supported by our Patreons. We couldn't do all of this without their help, as well as a surprise we had for you guys in the returning of class guides. Patreon.com/MarcelianOnline, or simply click the link in the description if you are interested in being part of the gang, of course. Cheers. The big exception is, of course, the new legendary cloak called the Rishi Wraps, which in the lore is basically the magical infused cloth that holds the Ethereals together in the material world. For us though, it will be a gigapower boost with a little grind associated with it. Don't worry, there is no AP farm or any of that kind. If anything, the grind could be a bit more involved and expanded, but what am I even doing asking for a bigger farm? You get the cloak fairly early in your questing cycle, and I won't spoil the story for you too much. The way the cloak works is associated with your specs role. Tanks, healers, and DPS all get a different cloak effect while in combat, while at the same time you can socket it with a specific socket that boosts its secondary stats. The socket can be purchased from this vendor right here for 100 gold, but these are the first cheap sockets. The good ones will be crafted by tailors. As you do activities and play the patch, you will upgrade your cloak, which has 5 levels of upgrade, and it costs 3 of this currency to get for each level. You earn these from delves, dungeons, raids, and PvP matches as you play the game, so it's safe to assume they drop more or less like these seasonal sparks. The cloak will also serve 2 more objectives. One is to enable you to engage with the raid better, likely similar to Rathian's cloak in Nyalotha, while the second is to enable the new way to do world content. That being Phasediving. Phasediving is not really new content insofar as how it works. It's basically a second version of the open world that you access with the cloak. Think how in Khazalgar you go to the corrupted black blood areas and sink yourself in it, and you start to then see other mobs. Here you just phase into a parallel version of Karesh. Do world quests and rares for rewards and a new currency called Untethered Coin. Don't worry, this doesn't unlock player power, but pure cosmetics. I did a full run of the weekly and got 7 coins that lets me already purchase multiple things, except the dopest mount here, which is 10 of these coins. And the transmog sets are definitely what my character will rock in Season 3, since they are giga ethereal vibes. You can also buy caches of Valor Stones and Resonance Crystals as well, especially early in the season when Valor Stones might be in high demand. A few things to know about Phasediving. You unlock it through the campaign at the same time as your legendary cloak since you need it to do the content. When you phase, you cannot skyride anymore unless they add this later. However, you have waypoints you can teleport to instead of actually flying, which I'm giga in favor for. Now having flying lets you feel the open world more and brings back some actual WoW feels. The next thing is, currently on the PTR, not all world quests work, which makes it difficult to know where to go. I assume this might not be intended and likely fixed by the time the patch launches, since we recorded this prior to that. Super rares do work, however. The conduit waypoints that you use to get around sometimes show on the map, sometimes they don't. Sometimes they show on the minimap when you get close to them. Sometimes they share the same location as the regular flight master. At any point during phasing, you can exit it by going to these conduits and using the extra action button or removing the phasing buff on you regardless of your position on the map. Finishing the world content segment comes the new delve, Archival Assault, with the new seasonal nemesis in Nexus Princess Kaivisa, which was not testable on the PTR, obviously, so have fun there. The delve, however, takes place in Azure Vault, or at least a small part of it, and the theme is Ethereals, stealing artifacts from the blue dragons. The actual delve itself is definitely the best one they have made so far, and with it comes a slew of delve changes for all delves and all rewards that we could make a video on if people are interested. Let's say if this video gets 1000 likes, we will make a comprehensive delve video since, personally, I am interested in delving more this season for the rewards. Starting the season, you probably noticed your undercoins are gone, as well as Brand's curios that you have to farm again. Also, Brand can go up to level 100 now. On top of that, you will have portals to these delves from Tazavesh, at least to the bountiful delves available at the time, and a lot more content you can discover. Have fun, you crazy delvers, you. The story will culminate with the raid. Well, with the dungeon, actually, but the raid comes first, so here we are. Manaforge Omega has received high praise by people testing it on the PTR since we haven't had the chance ourselves, but what we have seen looks really cool, and the fact that the devs mentioned Dimensius being the biggest boss they ever made is very exciting. The raid comes with a so-called optional boss, the Soul Hunters, a council fight with 3 Demon Hunters, a Havoc one, a Vengeance one, and a suspiciously third one that looks like no other spec Demon Hunter has, and definitely not hinting, teasing, or toying about a third spec that may or may not come, and the secrecy is killing me because it looks so cool. But the boss has some special loot you will definitely want, so the optional part seems irrelevant. One of the loot pieces will be a pair of boots that will boost the powers of your cloak, likely being the best boots for everyone. On top of that, Manaforge Omega comes with a renowned track of its own, much improved from the Undermine one, where you get all sorts of bonuses in the raid. New ones like defeating the optional boss, giving you Void Touch runes that do not expire on death, making this boss even less optional, at least at the start. But the biggest change with the new raid, or at least raid adjacent, are the tier sets, which now come with a bonus that changes based on your hero talents. This means that there are a total of 78 tier set bonuses this season, with each spec getting 2. This makes it interesting to play with more diverse builds, and assuming the balance will be on point, you get to have 2 tier sets in one. We have videos on this on the channel, but suffice to say this could be the start of better set bonuses in the future, maybe one for dungeons as well, who knows, one can only hope. Speaking of, the new dungeon this season is Echo Dome Aldani, a 3-boss dungeon with mostly linear pathing for the first 2 bosses, but more open going towards the 3rd one. The bosses are fun and diverse, and the whole feel of the dungeon is very fresh. The story in the dungeon continues after the raid apparently, which can mean a great deal for those of you who have been following the audio short stories WoW has released and is familiar with the campaign we get this season. Either way, a quick rundown: the first boss is a big stationary worm that tanks cannot leave the melee of. It spawns ads you have to kill and puddles you have to drop, with an intermission where it starts sucking everyone in. If you get sucked, you die, and also it spawns ads at the same time, which you have to kill before he eats them, or the boss gets giga buffed, likely wiping the party with the first mechanic. You can use puddles to slow ads, and that's about it. The second boss is a 2-boss fight that interchanges who you fight at different points of the combat. One of them does a spear mechanic on 2 players, likely the hardest mechanic of the fight, maybe even the dungeon. You want to put these close to each other and close to the boss, but don't overlap the players with both circles at the same time. People targeted take giga damage, and you want these spears cleaved down ASAP. The other boss marks players to be charged, and you want to use the charges to go through the boss so you break its damage reduction shield. Once you do that, both bosses are targetable and they also take extra damage, I believe, making this the burst phase where you nuke them down as hard as you can. Last boss is the coolest one so far, where it shatters souls from people and then attempts to hit them with its AoE mechanics. You want to quickly take your soul back before the mechanic hits it, giving you a giga DPS buff. Otherwise, if you lose it, you take a big debuff that can kill you and also reduces your haste by a lot. This fight is a mobility fight where you use your DPS buff to deal as much damage as possible. Play correctly and you deal more DPS, fail and you do less. And this goes into the Mythic Plus Season 3 dungeons and the pool as a whole. Together with Echo Dome Aldani, you will also go back to Floodgate as the returning dungeon, now without bubbles. Dawnbreaker, which has been bug fixed mostly and nerfed quite a bit. Priory of the Sacred Flame, which also received changes to the first boss and the packs leading to it. And lastly, Arakara, the infamous trinket farm dungeon that you may not farm as much since there are a lot of other better trinkets in Season 3. This so far as the War Within dungeons are concerned. Returning Legacy dungeons will feature both the Tazavesh sides that make a lot of sense now to more introduce new players to the actual good mega dungeon from Shadowlands. Yes, it will also be available as a Mythic and Hard mode dungeon as well. Also from Shadowlands, we will go back to Halls of Atonement that received its own share of changes, awaiting you to discover them. This season also brings a big change for the dungeons, but also the raid with the new waystones. Whenever you beat a boss, a waystone will appear in the world, but also on your map that will be your new graveyard if you die, cutting off a lot of running back that players universally dislike. Last but not least, a lot of classes have been buffed, nerfed or reworked. We have been covering this as our main content for the past 2 months, but to give you a short rundown, the meta will change for a few classes while it may remain the same for the others. Which actually doesn't really say anything. New specs have risen from the ashes like Frost Decay, Hunters and Evokers, while Arcane seems to still dominate. That aside, 5 specs have also seen minimal to moderate reworks, so let me quick fire through them right now. Shadow Priest has had some capstones reworked and now has 2 charges of Shadow Crash and a new spell in Void Volley in which Void Torrent transforms after you channel it first. Mind Spike is also gone. Frost Decay is likely the happiest spec of the season with a decent rework in Breath of Sindragosa, now requiring you to consume killing machines to extend it rather than draining runic power. You also get a lot of playstyles revolving around forgotten runic power consumers like Frost Strike and Glacial Advance. Unholy Decay is likely the least happy spec this season, with its rework ignoring almost all problems players had with it and adding a simplified playstyle that kills whatever was left of its unique gameplay. Some people might like it. Also, all DKs lost Abomination Limb. Prot Warrior has had its talents shifted around, a bunch of boring ones deleted, and a lot of execute talents added, and a questionable decision in removing spell block has been asked and met with an unsatisfying answer. Still likely the strongest tank this season, if not for Brewmaster, giving it a run for its money. The Monk tank can finally use its iconic Celestial without feeling like a troll for the group. It's also one of the tankiest tank with new ways to smooth out damage intake and self-sustain. All of these are fine and good, but is well worth returning to. We made a video going into how retail changed and what new and returning players can expect if they do choose to come back.